Welcome to this video. The reason behind having these interviews is to create knowledge hubs, help the candidates take better decisions by sharing experiences of others who have been there, by sharing their peaceful experiences, their internship experiences, their work experiences. Today we have Kamalika, who is an alumnus of MDA Gurgaon from the batch of 2018. Welcome, Kamalika.
Hi Ajay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kamalika. Thank you for taking out the time, and I'm looking forward to have a wonderful conversation with you.
Yeah, same here. And I must say, this is a wonderful initiative that you have started. And kudos to you. I hope you are able to reach out to a lot more students and a lot more people who don't exactly know what to do, how to proceed. So kudos to you on that.
Thanks a lot, Kamalika. So, Kamalika, why don't we get started? Take us through your schooling days, your college days.
Okay, sure. So I'll give you a brief background about myself. I'm a Bengali, but I grew up in Chennai. So I'm born and brought up in Chennai, and my entire schooling, college, my first part of my work experience was all in Chennai. So that has kind of molded me as a person. So if you see, I'm very musically inclined. I am into all things theater and drama. So that is something that has molded me. It's become like who I am, and to an extent, I would say that even to date, a lot of that influence is seen in my life. So that is about a brief about my background. I finished my schooling from Balavidya Mandir, and one of the best things about Balavidya Mandir was that we did not have something called exams till class 6. Like 6th was the first time we were introduced to the concept of exams. Until then, we were all honed on our creative skills, on just the basic understandings, and that, when you learn something without the pressure of a exam at the end of the term, you really learn, because there's no overhanging dagger for you to achieve something. So that, I think, is also one of the reasons why, and this is not just me, this is a lot of my people who pass out from my school. A lot of us, we like learning because, like, we go ahead and read because we like learning. It's not because we have this aim that we have to reach, or this marks that we have to get, or something like that. So that is one of the biggest things, best things about my school, at least. Then I did my engineering from SSN College of Engineering. I am an IT graduate. So the 4 years at SSN was a complete culture shock, because from BVM, which used to give students all liberties and all that, to SSN, where you had to stick to the syllabus, you had to learn what was in the syllabus, and then reproduce that in the exam, was a total shock for me. It was not something I was prepared for at all. But it was a learning for me as well, and it was truly inspiring, because SSN comes under Anna University, and under Anna University you get students from a array of backgrounds. So one of my really good friends, her father, she was a first generation learner, and her father was a coolie in Trivandrum station, and she had reached like this speed. And when she had come into college, I still remember she could not speak a word in English. But despite that, like, if I had been in her place, if I did not know a word in English and the medium was English for me, I would have broken down. I would have probably not studied at all. But her dedication, and she was in the top 10 in the first term. So you can imagine how inspiring that was for me. So there I learned that, there's nothing, like, you can probably be street smart, but nothing is ever going to replace hard work for you. So till then, I don't think I ever valued hard work much. I got marks just by, I don't know how I got marks, but yeah, I never put in that much of hard work. But when I came into college, I realized that no, there is something called hard work, and it will pay off for you if you put in the hard work. Then after 4 years of my engineering, so my engineering days were quite a lot of fun mixed with a lot of learning. I was a part of this entrepreneurship cell in college. We called ourselves Laksh. Uh, and so we had organized like a lot of hackathons, and gotten mentors onto our campus to, to take the hackathon winners through and launch their own startup. So that was something that I always knew that, okay, maybe sometime in the future I might want to do something like that, like become a mentor like that who's able to guide people. I had no plans of how I would go about doing that, frankly. But yeah, so then one of the things that I noticed in all the mentors was that they were technical geniuses. So I was like, okay, maybe that is the way to go forward. And I decided that I want to, out of college, join a tech company where I can, learn and become a better product, code a better product, develop a better product. So I joined this company called Temenos, which makes banking software products for a lot of international banks. We don't have a they didn't have a presence in India, but a lot of international clientele. And there again, I got to learn a lot about banking, the functionality behind a lot of things that we see. Like I probably the only exposure I had to a bank before that was going and depositing a check. So I figured out, how their entire system works, what's the check clearing system, what is the functionality of a teller and all that. And it was interesting. So I stayed there for about 3.5 years. But somewhere I think after my second year, I realized that I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I don't think I'm not doing anything new or exciting. So there's no way that I can learn anything new here. At least that was what I felt. So when I started exploring my options, I had two options in front of me. One was either to do an higher education in the US, or the other one was in India. And in India, for whatever reasons, I decided that okay, let's try getting an MBA done, because a lot of my friends, family, elders, mentors, all of them told me that I would be a good fit for an MBA sort of a profile. I don't know why they said that, but the reasons best known to them. So I decided to, okay, okay, let's try giving CAT a shot. And I was very lucky because, like in my first attempt itself, I cleared CAT, and but then I wouldn't take all the credit to myself. I had like a good bunch of uh, mm, so I signed up for a lot of these online classes, and the online mentors, that the teachers who were there, were very supportive. There were days when I had to work in office till 11 o'clock. So they would reschedule my class to post 11 o'clock so that I could also be a part of it. So I must say that way I've been very lucky. Uh, and then I got into MDI, and quite frankly, I did not think I'll make it because I just had a 97.6. And generally, if you see the candidates who come into NDI, all of them are like a 99, 98.8 or something like that. I did not have much of hope. So when I did get in, it was like a great joyous moment for me. So yeah, then I landed up in MDI, great 2 years, interned at Axis Bank and got a PPO. And yeah, I've been at Axis since then. So that's sums up about my journey.
Yeah, very nice to hear your story, Kamalika. So, Kamalika, you did not have thoughts of doing an MBA because a lot of people they have the thoughts of doing MBA, meet in their final year or after their maybe after 1 year, but then you had it post 2 years of your work experience. So,
Yeah.
and also you cracked CAT right in your first attempt. So, how was it like? Because you're out of college for almost 2.5 years, and then again preparing for CAT. What was it like?
It was very difficult, I'll agree. I mean, 2 years out of a classroom, then again you have to go back to studying. It was like you have to prepare yourself mentally. But yeah, like I said, I was quite lucky that way. So I had befriended someone in my organization who cracked CAT the year before me, and he had joined IIM Lucknow. So he had told me like a few, ways to make time for CAT preparation. So one of the best tips that he has given me till date was that, Kamalika, take up night shifts. You barely have any work at night shift. You'll get a lot of time to prepare in office. And I did that. I know that is like a lot of people are going to say that's not ethical, but yeah, I did that. I brought time out for myself during night shift. I took up extra shifts just because I knew that okay, I'm gonna have like a free time. I'm gonna have a good 2-3 hours from 11 to 3 o'clock when no one is gonna disturb me. I'm gonna prepare at those hours. So yeah, I kind of made time for myself because I realized that I want I don't see myself doing this forever. I know that I want to learn something new. I want to grow in some other direction. So yeah, I made time for myself that way.
Okay. So, Kamalika, I think you mentioned about while you're speaking about your undergrad days, you mentioned about being part of ECL and organizing events, having mentors and all. And I believe, and a lot of us would agree that undergrad plays a huge role at a later time in your career, be it while your MBA or your work experience, your first job that you land up. So, what kind of role did SSN play? You already shared some glimpses into that. Can you take deeper into how it shaped you up as a person?
Sure. So at SSN, I think we were lucky that we had access to a lot of information. And one of those sources of information was this National Entrepreneurship Network. So they had a cell that was functioning out of our college, and we had access to the entire. So they have like amazing mentors on board at NEN. So I still remember Vishnupriya ma'am, and she was a very dynamic, charismatic person. She used to probably come and meet us every at least once a month that I can think of. And she helped us structure a lot of our events. So we organized, I'm very proud to say that we organized the first ever student entrepreneurship discipline event, which is called the First Dot. And later years onwards, uh, it was co-branded by Tata. So Tata used to co-sponsor the entire event. So Tata First Dot became like a very big thing, but I'm very proud to say that we were the team that was at the inception of it. So we figured that there are of course that was back in 2010 when Indian startups were catching on to the imagination of the public crowd. So I was at a very I would say I was at the right place at the right time actually. So we realized that yes, there are startups that people out of an IIT or people out of an IIM are getting access to, and then there were startups with equally good idea in these tier 2, tier 3 colleges that did not have that same access to either mentors, funding, or whatever. But their ideas were brilliant. That definitely needed to be nurtured. That definitely needed to be showcased. So this was one of the biggest, I'd say, the best events that I had experienced as at SSN, and I'm glad I was a part of the whole thing because somewhere I must say that those sort of the people who came, the students who came, displayed their products, as well as the mentors who were there to handhold them and guide them. Those people kind of were really inspirational for me.
So Kamalika, also please take us through your experience at Temenos and how did that help you well at MDI?
Okay, so Temenos was quite an interesting place for me. It was something totally different. Like in college, we had learned C, C++, Java, DBMS, and at Temenos, none of that was used because they had their own proprietary language, which was almost similar to, you could say, COBOL. So it was like learning the whole thing again, and that DBMS systems were in the structured DBMS that we know of, that we're familiar with. It was a flat file structure. So everything was like a great learning for me. You had to unlearn everything that you've learned so far and then relearn the whole thing. So that is, I think, one of the, of course, the work technically was also quite challenging, but for me, this entire process of unlearning and relearning was the biggest takeaway for me at Temenos. That actually prepared me for a lot of things that were to come later on, like say be it from MBA to Access, or from MBA, from entering into MBA, a lot of things that you think your question, you feel you'll have to unlearn all that and relearn. So that is one thing that Temenos really helped me with.
So Kamalika, you've gone into MDA. I mean, you got selected into MDA, and then that phase kind of feels very difficult, very different. I should say, not difficult. You're working, and then you again have to transition into academics, especially someone like you with 3+ years of work experience. And especially term one tests all the candidates a lot. So how was that initial phase like? The term one, which everyone feels is very difficult.
So for me, it was all the more difficult because I felt very sick in the first term. Like till placements, like till after placements got over, I was hospitalized almost 4 times. It was in fact so bad. So there was this entire plague that was there going around. I don't know, like almost everyone in Delhi, Gurgaon, was coming down with chikungunya at that point of time. There was like this huge mosquito issue that was going on. And I unfortunately ended up with chikungunya followed by dengue. So, kind of like things became from bad to worse for me. It was in fact so bad that the dean of our placements called up my parents and said that, it'll be best if you ask her to drop out this year. So my mom came and tried taking care of me, tried convincing me that let's drop out. I was like, no, I've come this far, I've put in the hard work. I am sure I'm going to be able to do it. Like whatever comes, I'm not dropping out. I'm not giving up now. So, and I also remember because I had like 3.5 years of work ex, I was not getting that many shortlists. A lot of people would have actually been upset that they were not getting shortlists. I was relieved because that meant I could spend another day in my room not exerting myself. But ultimately, so Access was the third company that shortlisted me, and by then I think already close to 20, 30 companies had already come and gone on campus. So I was like, whatever happens, I just need to be sure that I go there. I don't feel weak and I'm able to put across my points to the panelists in front of me with conviction. I shouldn't come across as someone who's weak or tired or something like that, because that is a serious drawback for me. So yeah, my first 2 terms in fact were quite interesting and quite different from the rest of the people.
I mean, even during normal times, it's very difficult to go through the initial term one, term two, and your situation made it even more difficult. And I think maybe looking back, the dots will connect itself like Steve Jobs in one of his quotes he says. But then in that particular situation, it's really, really hard because your batchmates are getting placed, things are not happening as per your, I mean, as per the way you wish to. So, okay, then your term one was over, you got selected into, I mean, you got summer placement in Access, and then slowly you start getting adjusted to the rigor of MBA. So how was the later days like after the initial days? How were the next few days at MBA like?
So I had a lot of catching up to do because most of the classes I could not attend because I'd fallen sick. That way, I would say that my roommate and the circle of friends that I had, they were very supportive. Like they helped me quite a lot. And that catching up journey for me, of course, it took a lot of time, but it was still a lot of fun. My roommate also kind of sacrificed a lot of other parties that she could have gone for to stay back and tell me ki acha nahi, this is the best. So she was a commerce grad, and eco used to fly above my head, but eco was something that she used to be quite good at because she had done that for like almost 3 years in her college. So she used to take time out and make sure that she explains it to me in a very basic sort of a way that it stays with me. So that catching up for me was what I was doing in the next 2 terms, you could say, because I knew that there are lots of basic things that they expect you to know in your internship, and if you don't know that, that's not going to have a good impression. So that way, I would say that my roommate and my circle of friends were quite helpful.
Yeah, I think obviously the batchmates, the friends that you make at these MBA institutes are the ones who help you out really. Kamalika, I think time passes very fast, and especially the first year just goes by very quickly. You just land up your summers. I mean, your summer internship starts even before you realize that you completed 1 year. So, how was your
True.
summer internship experience at Axis Bank? Like, were you feeling healthy by that time?
Yeah, so by then I had completely recovered. And my Axis Bank internship was quite interesting. So by then I knew that I want to do something on the marketing side of things. I wasn't exactly very clear about what I wanted to do, but I had a brief idea that, okay, maybe something in the arena of digital products plus marketing. And that was all I had in my mind. Luckily at Axis, they give you an option to choose. So when they floated the form out, there was digital marketing and there was digital banking, and I chose those two. So luckily for me, I was given the UPI. I was given a project in the UPI team, and again, luckily, that was the year that demonetization had happened. So people were trying out different digital payment products, and UPI was fast catching the imagination. So I was a part of the team that was, designing a lot of new functionalities, figuring out what the customer wants. So I saw a lot of that in action, designing the entire flow of the entire customer journey flow, how you figure out, okay, this is a feature that may not, be something that the customer wants based on what data that we have at the bank. So that was a great learning for me. And that's when I decided that this is interesting. But what is a lot more interesting is the fact that these guys are able to say this with the data that they have. Maybe that is something that I might want to explore in the future. So, it just opened up avenues for me. It just made me reimagine things and understand things a lot better.
So Kamalika, year one and year two MBA, I feel they're completely different because you come into year two with experience of year one plus your summer internship experience, which kind of gives you perspective, even though you might not have idea at the beginning of your MBA, but by the beginning of your second year, your perspective would be better. So how did that year two was like? Because you come along with the experience already, like you already mentioned, the shift that Axis Bank internship experience had given you. So how was year two like for you?
So that actually helped me select a lot of my electives. I knew that there were areas in my internship that could have been a lot better if I knew these things beforehand. So some of the things was that my cost accounting was still quite weak. and I knew that we had an amazing cost accounting teacher, so I opted for his elective. And I also knew that you'll have to understand the behavioral aspect of things. So there was this professor. He's actually a visiting professor, Sanjay Bakshi, and he's a value investor. He's quite famous in the Indian value investing circle. So he was teaching a class on behavioral finance, but he used to be like, I call it finance because that's what I do, and that is probably the only reason why MDI invites me. But more than that, I'm teaching you guys psychology. So that selling point for me was like, yes, I'm going to understand what makes people move. So I opted for his subject as well. And I also knew that because I want to be on the digital product side of things, product management is something that I will have to learn. So it kind of helped me, figure out what are the subjects that I want to learn. And because I made the choice and I had decided to invest in those, and this is something that I don't know if I should be proud of or not. At the beginning of the first year, I was probably one of the bottom 20 people in terms of marks in our batch. And but by the end of second year, I had gone from a CG of 4 point something to a CG of 7. So that is something that I'm quite proud of, that there, because it's like I knew that these are subjects I have to do. These are subjects that are going to help me in the future, so I might as well invest time in understanding them from the teachers and the guest lecturers who come. So that way I would say that it was uh, because, and it's like a confirmation bias, if you'd say, you've chosen the subject, so you might as well put your effort into it and prove yourself right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you got a PPO from Axis Bank, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had enough time in second year to think on things, to maybe take electives more freely rather than thinking that, okay, I need to go into marketing or finance. So I mean, how did you use your free time in second year? First year was completely hectic. You are not feeling well. But then second year you had a PPO, and then you might have had a lot of free time at hand. So what did you do with those time in hand?
So I was a part, like, apart from the academic side of things, I was a part of the cultural club. So I took it up to, revamp the club entirely. We had a very poor social media presence. So I went back to the cultural club's president and told him that this is not working. People barely know that we have this good talent. So let's start rolling out, presence of social media. So we made a few, I think about 4 or 5 videos, and posted it on YouTube, shared it across on the Facebook handle, tried building, engagement at that point of time. Honestly, didn't know that this is what digital marketers do, but yeah, it was a good experience for us to, learn and understand from that. So that was one of the things that I did. And on the academic side of things, I took up a lot of projects under my professors, like just stuff that I wanted to do, and I had time in hand, so why not invest in it? And I learned a lot from them. Like, my professors used to give a lot of reading material for me outside of classroom as well. So I learned a lot from them. And these are like very small projects. Like, one of them was working with the Haryana government to figure out how to induce consumer behavior into segregating your waste. So this would probably not be a project that anyone would want to do. Uh, but because I had time in hand, and I decided that, okay, it's probably going to help me figure out how Indian consumers work, because a lot of the books that we have are based on what the Westerners feel, and they think in a different way, we think in a completely different way. So that was again another good learning ground for me. She also published, I think she went on later the next year to publish her work on that. So kind of, you feel good about the whole thing. So, yeah.
So, Kamalika, you had already, I mean, you were given PPO by Axis Bank. So sometimes there is that, okay, I mean, I shall take electives which will help me at my job. So were you thinking on those lines, or were you like, no, I'll take electives which I feel like learning? So what was your thought process back then like?
It was, and again, this is something that I mentioned before. This is something that BVM has, my school has, molded me in that way. You want to learn because you like to learn that subject. So I took a lot of subjects that were interesting, because when we saw the course outline, it looked very interesting. It looked like, okay, there's a lot of value in this, so why not take it up? So I did not, of course, there were a few subjects, like I mentioned, like product management was one of them. There were subjects that I knew you will have to have the basics of it if later on you want to make a career out of it. So there were a few subjects, but by and large, most of the subjects that I took up were because A, the professors were amazing, B, the material that was there, the course outline looked very interesting. So those were the two motivations for me to choose those subjects.
Okay, so Kamalika, I mean, post your MBA, you went back to the organization where you have done your summer internship, and you've been there for the last 2 years. So, how was the experience at Axis Bank as a whole been like?
Axis Bank has a very, I would say, one of the best MT programs, because so we have this thing called a rotational stint where for 3 months we're in we're given different projects across different departments, and then at the end of it you get to choose, at the end of 9 months you get to choose which department you want to join, and most of the times there are availabilities, enough availability that the MT gets absorbed in that department. So that way it's been a great journey for me, and I would say that all MTs who join Axis Bank should take up the rotation stints, because otherwise you're never going to understand what the other side does. So I worked with the strategy team, I worked with the product team, and then I joined BI. So I know that okay, this is the challenge that the product team faces, this is the challenge that the strategy guys face, and this way I can better come up with better analysis for them when I am a part of BIU. So that way I think Axis Bank's journey, the way they've structured their program is quite amazing.
Okay, yeah, nice to hear that, Kamalika. So, Kamalika, you write very regularly on LinkedIn, and you write pretty well. So, share us your journey on LinkedIn. How has it been like? What did you learn from these things? Because once we are out of MBA, except for our job, there are very few things that we actually put effort and time into it. But you've been very active on LinkedIn. So, take us through your LinkedIn journey.
So I am quite embarrassed to say that I've been on the platform for very long, but I started using the platform only about a year and a half back. So I don't think that's quite like, the most inspiring or the most motivational thing to tell people out there. So I joined LinkedIn 2009 when one of the people, so this was like a session one of our seniors had taken, and he had gotten a job offer at BMW, a company that does not visit our undergrad college, and that was through LinkedIn. So that was like it was a buzz in everyone's mind that, oh, if you're on LinkedIn, if you have a presence on LinkedIn, you'll get a better job opportunity. So that's how I started out on LinkedIn. The exact wrong way of doing things. Then slowly, like when I about a year and a half back, I attended a session by Sampark Sachdev, who had that year been given the LinkedIn Spotlight Awards. So his session was amazing, and it was very simple. It was very to the point. He's like, you don't have to come up with something mind-boggling to put it on LinkedIn. It's not your research paper. It is your opinion backed by some facts. So I was like, okay, I read a lot. I have an opinion. So maybe I should start writing in LinkedIn as well. So that's how it started. Originally, I just used to, post links to articles that I found interesting or something like that with very little value add. Then later, I started adding my own thoughts to it, or whether if I agreed or disagreed with it, why I agreed, why I disagreed with it. And I realized like somewhere down the line, I realized that this was really helping me connect with a lot of people who either think like me or they have a different point of view, and from them I can probably learn a lot more. So that was how I realized that okay, if I want to learn, what better way than peer learning. This is something we've all learned in MBA, so yeah, why not make use of LinkedIn and learn from my peers over there. That, and in a way it also encourages me that I stay abreast of what is happening around me, I stay well informed and well read, so that it's like a win-win for me on both sides.
And also, sometimes when you put out your opinion, sometimes there is, I mean, people there are going to be people who will be on your side, and there will be people who will not be on the who will not be on your side. So, how did you take it? Because especially on social media, it's kind of difficult because even if there are 100 positives, the two negatives can definitely knock the other ones off. The feeling that you get, especially the dopamine hits that we get whenever someone likes a post, be it on LinkedIn, Facebook, or any other platform. So how were you handling it? Because it's not easy to daily do it consistently and yet not get affected by the things that are happening, be it positive or negative. So how are you taking that process?
So very true. I mean, there are quite nasty comments that I get every once in a while. In fact, and I agree that to an extent I invite these comments because some of my views are quite contentious. Like I'd recently posted on the Chinese app ban and how if China wants, they could retaliate in a way that would affect the Indian economy a lot more. So people have called me anti-national. They've said that I'm not patriotic enough. So I've been called a lot of names, and I generally take comments in two ways. If it's just someone who's trying to be mean and hurtful, I delete their comment. There's no point engaging with such people at all. It's just going to, spoil my mental peace. But if it's someone who has a different point of view, like I still remember there's this girl called Ria who came up with a very good way of why this could also be a good thing for uh, the Indian MSME sector, and she'd given the example of toy manufacturers. So such people I like engaging with because from them I can learn a lot more. So I take it like, two ways to go about it. One you block, the other you learn from. So yeah.
So, Kamalika, I think, yeah, very nicely pointed about how we can use it to learn from others, because we know one part of it, but then the other parts we might be able to get from the other people who are actually engaging with the content. So, Kamalika, let's go back to your engineering days, because now looking back, the kind of, 2000, 2008 to 2012, or right now the undergraduates who are there, who are just going to pass out maybe 2021 or 22, the kind of opportunities that you had back then and the kind of opportunities with the internet penetration and with the other digital economy booming up, there are a lot of different things. So what would your advice be to someone who is right now in their undergraduation, what they could do? Because all the people almost right now are at their home, but then fortunately we have access to internet. So what would your advice to someone who is going to pass out in a couple of years or maybe in the next year would be? What they can do with the time at hand before they get into the job or before they come out of their college?
So I think now is the best time to bridge the gap between what is taught in colleges and what the industry expects of you. We all know, like every year, there are reports that come out, and they're quite saddening to see that industry says that only 3% or only 7% of the engineering graduates who come out are employable. So there's a big gap between what is being taught in colleges and what companies expect, because of which such reports are coming out. So I think this is like the best time you can use to upskill yourselves, and it doesn't necessarily have to be technical. Like if you go back and see a lot of colleges teach you, the curriculum at colleges has grown a lot. Like when I was in college, we did not have artificial intelligence, but it is taught nowadays. So I don't think it's just the technical aspect of it. There are soft skills also that you have to focus on. You need to know how to be humble when you present your view. You need to know how to put a good presentation together. You need to know how to structure your presentations so that your point comes across well. So these are also things that they can spend time on and make themselves a lot more employable, so that later as years goes by, we'll probably see those numbers dropping from 7% to say 90% or something like that. So that would be my only advice I'd say to college graduates this year who have that time in hand.
Also, we see that there are a lot of job seekers rather than creators, and given the size of our population, and someone like you who's been on a, who's been as part of ESL, as part of National Entrepreneurship Network, where do you think? I think especially in our engineering, we don't embrace failure. What we do is we just go through our academics and then we don't try to tinker with other things. But then that's the actual time when we can actually fail, because you're very young, you have nothing to lose. You can start building your blog or you can start creating content. So from your experience at ESL, what would be your advice to budding entrepreneurs who are in their undergraduation, who are trying to think that, okay, what if I fail, who are having these sort of thoughts in their mind, rather than going out there and trying out things, because there is this fear at the back of the mind, what if I fail, what will others think? So what would your advice be to those entrepreneurs, because you've been part of the ESL?
I think the advice, and this is going to be quite generic, but I think you should not take failure as a rolling block, but as a stepping stone. So that way, you can learn. If you stop seeing your failures from the lens of others, but start seeing it from what it has taught you, you are going to be better poised to take on better challenges, bigger challenges, and solve problems that are actually the need of the hour later on. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but somewhere down the line, this experience is going to count for you. So I think that would be my advice to most people who are thinking of entrepreneurship. Take it with a pinch of salt that yes, you will fail. There is a high possibility that you will fail, but that failure is also going to be something that helps you to succeed some other day. So that would probably be what I would like to tell all budding entrepreneurs. And the country really needs people like you. We do need more people creating jobs, coming up with proper solutions that aren't there presently or are just not attainable or not available at a good value for customers. So that would be what I would like to say to these guys.
I mean, very well said, Kamalika. And then, Kamalika, I mean, we have seen the difficulties that the MBA class of 2020, I mean, even undergraduate class, I mean, whatever they're doing, everyone who has passed out of 2020 is facing issues. But then there is this batch of 2021 who will be passing out, and then there is a lot of uncertainty. The classes have started online. They're going to miss a major part of their second year MBA. So all these things are going, there is a lot of uncertainty, and you yourself have faced a lot of things in your first year and then your second year during your MBA. So, what would your advice be to someone who is going to pass out in 2021, who is having 7 8 months of time in hand before they are going to start their journey? How they can be better? I mean, how they can use this time better so that they'll be better off when they're starting their corporate journey?
I think we all agree that things are not going to be the same going forward. So it would be, I think it would be wrong on my part to give advice based on what I have, experienced in the past, because most of it probably will not be applicable. But it's the times are changing, and I think those people who learn how to adapt, those people who learn how to roll with the punches, are probably going to come out on top. So try figuring out ways that you can reach out to people, understand what is happening in the industry, and see that, and try mapping that against what you are learning or what you will be learning over the course of your electives in the next year. And if there is a gap, the best way to fill that gap would be to reach out to your professors. Trust me, professors know a lot. I know we underestimate them a lot. We make fun of our professors in college and all that, but trust me, reaching out to your professors is probably going to help you guys a lot, because like, even like, just giving my example, whenever I'm stuck in a particular problem or something like that, I ping my professor and ask him for advice. So these guys have their industry contact also, they have the academic skills also, so they're best poised to guide you and help you. So do make use of your professors.
I think I'm definitely on your side. I mean, if you ask me, I would definitely, I'm definitely regret the fact that I did not interact with many professors. I mean, I did interact, but then looking back, I thought I'm looking back from this point of time back into my MBA days. Definitely, I'll agree that I should have interacted with even with professors whose subjects I have not even taken, just to have a casual conversation, because professors are really open, especially at the top B schools of the country. The professors are really open to have discussions. Maybe you can just go have a conversation with them. They're even ready for debates to disagree on things that they actually think the other way around. So that way, the professors at the top schools are really open for discussion. So Kamalika, you already, I mean, you also read a lot of books, and especially reading these days, we read a lot of stuff on social media. A lot of youth reads a lot of other stuff, but then books are underrated because books are someone. I mean, books are written by someone who has put their lot of effort, be it 20 years of their journey or other things. So, how did reading change you as a person? Because this your views would definitely maybe inspire some other people to take up reading regularly. So, take us through your experience of reading and how did it change you and made you better?
So I think I'm on this holy crusade to make people start reading more. So this is like a question that's quite close to my heart. And the reason why, so this is very interesting thing that Steve Jobs had said, that when talking about creativity, and when you reach out to people who are creative and ask them that how did you think of that, they feel very embarrassed or sometimes guilty, because these are things that they just know because they've experienced it, or they've heard of it or learnt of it by just keeping their eyes and ears open. And a lot of people do not have that vast array of experience, and that's why they're not able to come up with that big picture, that creative thinking. Now, one way that you can go about doing this, in my opinion, would be get that many different sorts of experiences around you, accumulate all those experiences, but that is going to take a lot of time. A better way to do would be to read, because when you're reading a person's book, often it is their entire life's experience that's condensed into those 250 pages. And there's no better way to, vicariously live those experiences than through a book. And trust me, you're going to start feeling like, I don't know, a lot of times people have come up to me and said, dude, that was so creative. How did you think of it? I'm like, that just seemed obvious to me. Like, I don't know. Don't you guys know this? So yeah, that way it is something. And more than that, you never know. So I see a lot of people, like a lot of people, especially people who are joining colleges this year, they've come up to me and said that, oh, I want to specialize in marketing, so just a few marketing books. I would say just don't stick to one genre. You never know the kind of Medici effect that comes into play when you read across genres. So don't restrict yourself to one particular genre alone. Try reading across genres. You have no idea where one idea comes up for you, and you implement it, and people will be like, oh wow, we never heard of it, because they did not go outside of their particular stream. So that would probably be something that I personally feel everyone should be doing.
I mean, very well said about reading Kamalika. And also, I think some people think that they can maybe listen to audiobooks or listen to, see videos and learn things, but then that's kind of more like a passive thing. But then reading actually triggers your mind, and you can go at your own speed. I mean, there's no point in watching a video at 1.5x or 2x. Maybe that you can do the same thing, reading a book and then coming back, looking at things, highlighting things, and all. That's the real joy of that's the real joy that reading books gives you. I mean, thanks for sharing that about the reading of books. What are some books that you suggest to someone who is joining just MBA? Maybe one or two books. So someone who is going to join MBA in the next, I think maybe in the couple of weeks they're going to join the campuses. So what would be one or two books that you feel would make a difference to their mindset before they're starting their B school journey?
So one of the things that these are probably books that if you read before you join your MBA, when you're in the classroom, it will probably help you a lot more, because you recollect those and be like, oh yeah, I know this. So you'll feel like a lot of familiarity. And so I'll probably suggest books on those lines. One of the most amazing books, it's slightly dated, but HBR's set of 10 essential articles. It covers marketing, finance, strategy, and the entire gamut of whatever you will be learning in your first year. And it's just 10 articles, your entire first year compressed in that. So that would be my first suggestion to everyone. Another thing would be, especially for people who are from an engineering background like myself and who have no idea about what economics is going to hold in store for you, Day-to-Day Economics by IMA. That book, I read it unfortunately after like somewhere in my second year. And when I read it, I was like, why didn't I know of this before? If I had known this, my economic classes would not have been a bouncer for me. So that would be another book. Then there are a lot of books that probably will take a lot of time but good to invest in. One of them would be Intelligent Investor, and another one would be Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. So these would be four books that I probably would ask everyone to read at some point in their life.
Kamalika, I mean, when we look back, there will be certain things when we feel that, okay, like I said, maybe I could have interacted with more professors. And obviously, you would have your own set of regrets, maybe some advice which you will have for your own younger self who was in the same path. So, what would be your advice to someone who's your younger self?
Uh, I think this is a regret that I have, and this is something that would, if the people who are joining MBA now implement, it would be very great for them. That would be using your online resources. So we all know that top B schools all have, a good repository of case materials or research articles from the top international universities, be it Harvard or Stanford, Cambridge, and all that. And I don't think I did justice to that. Like, I probably only read those cases which would have helped me come up with a better assignment or a better solution for a team project or something like that. I really wish that I had spent more time researching into those, reading those materials, because back then it was free. Now I pay for it to get all those materials. So that and now for the current batch that's going in, especially from what I've heard, a lot of colleges have tied up with Coursera and edX and Unacademy and all that, so they have access to the best professors teaching them. So do not miss out on that opportunity. Please do make use of it, because you never know, probably when you join work you want to upskill, and you will be paying out of your pockets for those courses. So yeah.
Thank you, Amalika. Thank you for sharing all your insights, your thoughts, and you've been candid enough to share what's the actual thing, unless like trying to sound better or trying to sound that I figured it all by the time I joined MBA and all. So thank you for taking out the time. Definitely, your experiences, the stories that you have shared, will be helpful to the people who are trying to figure out what they want to do with their careers, be it MBA or what they want to do while they're in their undergraduation. Thanks a lot, Kamalika.
Thank you, and all the best to the incoming batch. Hope you guys have a great 2 years.
Thanks, Kamalika.